The day Daniel signed over 60% of his company to the woman he loved was the same day she walked into his office with another man and said, "You're no longer needed." What she didn't know was that Daniel had been planning for this moment.
If you're still watching, that means you're enjoying this story. Go ahead, subscribe, leave a comment, and share it. More powerful stories are coming.
Daniel Cole wasn't just rich, he was untouchable. At 32, he owned one of the fastest growing tech empires in Lagos. Investors worshipped him, competitors feared him, but there was one person he trusted blindly: Vanessa. She wasn't just his girlfriend, she was his partner. The woman who stood by him when his company was just a struggling startup in a cramped apartment. Or so he thought. Vanessa knew everything: his passwords, his business strategies, his weaknesses. And Daniel, he gave her more. One evening, under soft candlelight, he slid a document across the table. "Sign it," he said softly. Vanessa frowned. "What is this?" Daniel smiled. "Shares. 60% of the company is now yours," Daniel said casually. Her hands trembled. "Why would you do this?" she asked. "Because I trust you," he said. And that was his biggest mistake. The city of Lagos glittered beneath them. From the rooftop at Daniel's penthouse, everything looked calm, powerful, untouchable. But peace is often where betrayal hides best. Daniel stood by the glass railing, a drink in his hand, staring into the distance. Vanessa walked up behind him slowly, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. "You've been quiet all evening," she said. Daniel didn't turn. "Just thinking," he said, still looking at the beautiful view of the city. Vanessa smirked slightly. "That's dangerous. Every time you think, someone loses money," Vanessa said. That got a faint chuckle out of him. But something still felt off. "Do you trust me?" Daniel suddenly asked. Vanessa paused. It was unexpected. She tilted her head slightly. "Where is this coming from?" Her voice became soft. Daniel turned now, his eyes searching hers. "Answer me," he requested. Vanessa stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest. "Of course I do," she said softly. "Why wouldn't I?" Vanessa said softly. Daniel studied her face for a few seconds longer than usual, as if trying to read something deeper, something hidden. Then he nodded slowly. "Good," Daniel said. His voice was calm. Inside the penthouse, Daniel's phone buzzed on the table. Vanessa's eyes flicked toward it, just for a second. Daniel noticed. "Are you expecting a call?" he asked. She shook her head quickly. "No, just distracted," she said. But Daniel had already seen that look before. It wasn't distraction. It was interest. Later that night, Daniel stepped into the shower. The sound of running water filled the room. And Vanessa stayed behind. Alone. Her expression changed instantly. Softness vanished, replaced by something colder. Calculating. She moved quickly, picked up Daniel's phone, unlocked it. No hesitation, no guessing. She already knew the password. Her fingers moved fast across the screen. Emails, investor accounts, private documents. She was searching for something specific. Then, she found it. A hidden file. Project Guardian. Vanessa frowned. Project, what? She tapped it. The file opened, and what she saw made her freeze. Backup accounts. Offshore holdings. Emergency ownership transfers. Encrypted asset routes. Her heartbeat quickened. Daniel, she whispered under her breath. This man had planned for something. Suddenly, the bathroom water stopped. Vanessa's eyes widened. Shit, she scoffed. She quickly locked the phone and dropped it exactly where it was. Then rushed to the couch, grabbing a magazine. By the time Daniel walked out, she looked perfectly relaxed. But Daniel wasn't fooled. Not completely. He dried his hair slowly, watching her from across the room. "You're still awake?" he asked her. Vanessa smiled casually. "Couldn't sleep," she answered. Daniel nodded. Then his gaze shifted briefly to his phone. A notification flashed silently. Unauthorized access detected. It disappeared just as quickly. Too fast for Vanessa to notice. But Daniel saw it, and in that moment, everything became clear. He looked back at Vanessa. She was smiling, calm, beautiful, dangerous, and for the first time, Daniel smiled too. But not the same way. This smile was colder, sharper, almost satisfied. "Good," he said quietly. Vanessa blinked. "Good?" she asked. Daniel walked past her, picking up his phone. "Nothing," he replied, then added, almost to himself, "Everything is right on schedule." Vanessa's smile faded slightly. "Daniel, what does that mean?" she asked with fake concern. He stopped at the doorway, turned halfway, and said something that would haunt her later. "It means, now I know who I'm really building this empire with." He walked away, leaving Vanessa sitting there, unsure if she had just gotten away with something, or just walked into a trap. 3 weeks later, Daniel walked into his office early. But something felt off. The receptionist avoided eye contact. His access card denied. "Sir, you're not authorized anymore," the receptionist said. Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Then the elevator doors opened. Vanessa stepped out, but she wasn't alone. Beside her stood Richard Hale, Daniel's biggest rival. Vanessa looked at him, cold, unfamiliar. "Daniel," she said calmly, "you need to leave." The hall was quiet. You could hear the sound of a pin if dropped to the ground. Daniel laughed. "This isn't funny," Vanessa said, her voice firm and unusually cold. "It's not a joke." Richard smirked. "You signed everything over to me. The company is mine now." Vanessa crossed her arms. Daniel's smile slowly faded. "You planned this." Vanessa stepped closer and said, "I didn't come this far to stay in your shadow." Within hours, Daniel lost everything. His office, his position, his power. News headlines exploded. Tech billionaire forced out of his own company. Vanessa and Richard took over completely. And Daniel disappeared. The rain started the moment Daniel stepped out of the building. Heavy, unforgiving, almost like the city itself had turned its back on him. People stared. Some whispered. Some recorded. The great Daniel Cole, walking out like a nobody. His phone buzzed non-stop. Calls, messages, notifications. Headlines were already spreading like wildfire. But Daniel ignored all of it. He got into his car. Sat there, silent, still. Then, he laughed. Low at first, then deeper, colder. "Vanessa," he muttered under his breath. "You really went all in," he said, still laughing hard. The driver in front glanced nervously through the mirror. "Sir, where to?" the driver asked. Daniel leaned back, eyes closing slowly. Take me somewhere quiet. He paused for a moment. Then he added, somewhere no one will think to look. Daniel dropped off at an old, abandoned-looking warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Nothing about it screamed wealth. Nothing about it said billionaire. But inside, it was a different world. Screens, servers, data flowing across multiple monitors. And in the middle of it all, a man. Sir, the man said immediately, standing up. You're trending everywhere. Daniel walked in calmly, removing his wet jacket. Of course I am, Daniel said. Should we respond? Make a statement? The man hesitated. No. Daniel smirked slightly. He walked past him, eyes scanning the screens. Let 'em think I've lost everything, Daniel said, his eyes filled with content. The man frowned. But, sir, the company. Daniel stopped, turned slowly, and the look in his eyes. It wasn't defeat, it was control. Did the transfer go through? Daniel asked. The man nodded quickly. Yes. Every account flagged under Project Guardian has been secured. Daniel exhaled, almost relieved. Good. The man stepped closer, lowering his voice. She took the company, sir, but she doesn't know. Daniel cut him off. She doesn't know anything. He walked toward the main screen, tapped a few keys, and suddenly, a list of hidden assets appeared. Massive figures. Untouched. Untouchable. Vanessa thinks she won, Daniel said calmly. But she only took the stage. He stopped for a moment. He looked back at the man. Not the script. The man couldn't hide his smile. So what's the next move? The man asked. Daniel's expression darkened slightly. Strategic. Precise. Dangerous. We wait, Daniel said. Wait, the man echoed. Daniel nodded. Power isn't taken back in anger, Daniel started. He leaned closer to the screen, eyes reflecting the glow. It's taken back in silence. Back in the company. Vanessa's office was bright, luxurious, victorious. She stood by the window, phone in hand, watching the news, watching Daniel fall. Richard walked in behind her, pouring himself a drink. He's finished, he said confidently. Vanessa didn't respond immediately. Her eyes stayed on the screen. Something about Daniel's face, even in humiliation, didn't sit right with her. He's too calm, she said quietly. He just lost everything. What do you expect? Richard scoffed. Vanessa shook her head slowly. No. Her grip tightened on the phone. Daniel doesn't lose like this. For the first time, doubt crept in. At the warehouse, Daniel stood alone now. Everyone else had left. He pulled out his phone, scrolled briefly, then stopped at Vanessa's contact. He stared at it for a few seconds, then smiled, not with love, not with pain, but with something far more dangerous. Let's see how long you enjoy my throne. His voice was fierce. He locked the phone, and behind him, the screens lit up again. Faster, brighter, alive. The game wasn't over. It had just begun. 3 months later, Vanessa sat in her luxurious office, sipping wine. She had everything now. Money, power, control. But something felt wrong. Ma'am, her assistant rushed in. There's a problem. Vanessa frowned. What is it? She asked, looking confused. Our accounts, they're empty. Her assistant said. What? Vanessa said, almost screaming. Everything is gone. her assistant said again. Her heart dropped. Check again, Vanessa said as she rose to her feet. We did. Multiple times. The funds were transferred. Her assistant replied. To where? Vanessa asked, waiting. The assistant swallowed. To Daniel. The boardroom was silent. Too silent. Vanessa sat at the head of the table, fingers interlocked, eyes scanning the faces around her. Investors, directors, people who used to respect her. Now, they looked uncertain. One of them cleared his throat. Miss Vanessa, we've reviewed the quarterly projections. Vanessa nodded confidently. And? Vanessa asked. The man hesitated. That's the problem. A screen lit up. Numbers appeared. Red. Falling. Unstable. Vanessa's expression tightened slightly. That's impossible. Her grip tightened on the table. Another board member leaned forward. We've lost 3 major investors in the last 48 hours. What? Vanessa snapped. On whose authority? Vanessa asked. They pulled out themselves. That doesn't make sense, she said, standing up now. We just took over. This company is stronger than ever. Everywhere became silent for a while. Then, a quiet voice from the far end of the table, or weaker than it looks. Vanessa's eyes snapped in that direction. Excuse me. The man adjusted his glasses. Most of the company's liquidity was tied to accounts we can no longer access. Vanessa froze. What do you mean, no longer access? Her voice trembled. They've been locked. Locked by who? She queried. No one answered. And that's when the fear started. In Vanessa's private office, the door slammed shut. Fix it, she shouted into the phone. I don't care what it takes, get me into those accounts. Her tech team's voice came through, shaky. Ma'am, we've tried everything. Then try harder. Vanessa screamed. There was a pause. Then, we think someone else has overriding control. Her tech team said. Vanessa's grip tightened. Who? We don't know. The tech personnel answered. The call ended. Vanessa stood there, breathing heavily. Then slowly, she turned, and her eyes landed on the city outside. For the first time since taking power, she didn't feel on top of it. She felt watched. At Richard's penthouse, he paced back and forth, furious. This is your fault, he snapped. Vanessa spun toward him. My fault. You said everything was secured. Richard scoffed. It was. Vanessa argued. Then why are we losing money? Richard asked. Vanessa opened her mouth, then stopped, because suddenly, a memory hit her. Project Guardian. Her face slowly drained of color. What? Richard noticed. Vanessa shook her head quickly. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was everything. Later that night, Vanessa was alone in her room. She opened her laptop, hands trembling slightly. Typed something in. A hidden file, one she thought she'd ignored. Project Guardian. It opened, and what she saw this time was different, updated, alive, numbers moving, assets shifting, money flowing, but not to her, away from her. Her heart started pounding. This wasn't here before. Then, a message appeared on the screen. You should have stopped digging. Vanessa gasped, slamming the laptop shut. Silence filled the room. Her breathing grew louder, faster, uneven. Then slowly, she whispered, Daniel. A dark room, multiple screens glowing. Daniel stood in front of them, watching everything. Vanessa's accounts, her calls, her panic, all of it. He picked up a glass of wine. Calm, composed, in control. Then, softly, "Now, you're starting to understand." He took a slow sip. "This was never your empire." The screen reflected in his eyes flickered. "It was just your test." Fade to black. That night, Vanessa stormed into a private penthouse. And there he was. Daniel, relaxed, calm, watching the city lights. "You," she whispered. Daniel smiled slowly. "You really thought I didn't know?" His voice was firm. Vanessa's voice shook. "Know what?" she said. "That you and Richard were meeting behind my back, months before the deal." Daniel revealed. The room went silent. Daniel stood up. "I built that company," he said. "You think I'd just hand it over without a backup plan?" Vanessa's legs weakened. "What did you do?" Her voice trembled. Daniel stepped closer. "Every asset, every account, every investor fund." He leaned in slightly. "Was moved to a shadow company." Vanessa's eyes widened. "And guess who owns it?" "I do." Daniel smiled. The morning started like any other. But by noon, Vanessa's world began to burn. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Calls, messages, alerts, all at once. Relentless. She grabbed it, frustrated. "What now?" she snapped, answering. "Ma'am." Her assistant's voice trembled. "You need to see the news." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "I don't have time for. It's about you." That made her pause. Slowly, she turned toward the TV, mounted on the wall, picked up the remote, switched it on, and froze. Breaking news. Fraud allegations rock Cold Technologies. Her heart skipped. No, that's not possible." The news anchor continued. "Newly released financial records suggest massive irregularities under the current leadership." Vanessa's hand began to shake. This is a lie. But then, more headlines flooded in. Investor funds missing. Emergency investigation launched. CEO Vanessa linked to suspicious transfers. Her breathing grew uneven. "No, this isn't happening." Outside the company building, there was chaos. Reporters everywhere. Cameras flashing. Crowds gathering. Vanessa stepped out of her car. And instantly froze. "That's her." They rushed her. Microphones shoved in her face. Lights blinding her vision. "Did you steal company funds? Where is the money? Are you responsible for the missing billions?" Vanessa stumbled back. "Get off me. I didn't do anything." Vanessa screamed. But no one listened. Because at that exact moment, police vehicles pulled up. Everything went quiet. An officer stepped forward. Calm. Serious. Holding a file. "Miss Vanessa Cole." Her throat went dry. "Yes," she answered. "We have a warrant for your arrest." The world stopped. "For what?" she whispered. "Financial fraud, misappropriation of investor funds, and conspiracy." Vanessa's eyes widened in pure shock. No, this is wrong. This is a mistake." The officer didn't move. "You have the right to remain silent." "I didn't do anything," she screamed. But even as she said it, deep down, she knew. This wasn't a mistake. This was a setup. Richard, on the other hand, was running. He panicked, sweating profusely. He slammed his car door, dialing frantically. Pick up, pick up, pick up." No answer. His screen suddenly flashed. Account frozen. Then another alert. Travel restriction issued. His breathing became heavy. No, 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 no. Before he could move, police cars surrounded him. It's over, Richard. Vanessa. Handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Cold, heavy, final. The cameras captured everything. Her fall, her shame, her destruction. As she was being led away, she lifted her head slowly, and her eyes scanned the building, floor by floor, window by window, until she saw him, top floor, standing behind the glass. Daniel, watching, calm, still, untouchable, their eyes locked, and in that moment, everything became clear. The transfers, the missing money, the investigation, it was all him. Vanessa's lips trembled. Daniel, she whispered, but he couldn't hear her. Or maybe, he didn't care to. Inside the building, top floor, Daniel stood with his hands in his pockets, looking down at the chaos below. One of his men stepped forward. "It's done, sir." Daniel nodded slightly. "Investors have been restored," the man continued. "Funds traced back. Authorities satisfied. And her?" Daniel asked quietly. The man hesitated. "She'll take the fall." Daniel exhaled slowly. Not in relief, not in joy, but in closure. She made her choice. He turned away from the window. "Make sure the company survives this," he added. "That's all that matters." "Yes, sir," the man said. Outside, Vanessa was pushed into the police car. Broken, silent, the door slammed shut, and as the car drove off, the empire she stole faded behind her. Gone. She wanted his empire. But she never realized she was walking into his endgame. Vanessa stood outside the same building she once controlled. Broken, powerless. And inside, Daniel watched from the top floor. Untouchable again. She thought she stole his empire. But in the end, she was just part of his plan.